Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
Courtney Caldwell, welcome to the Center of the Universe.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
You and I met a couple years ago, right?
We did, yes.
The Ashland Movie Theater and you opened up the doors to the theater so we could record season 1 of the podcast for Downtown Ashland Association.
Yeah. That was in, I think, July or August of 2021, and I just started working there, and the theater was still closed due to the pandemic.
Yeah, it was a kind of a bummer of a time.
Yes, it was.
So the Ashland Movie Theater, as we all know, opened up 75 years ago originally, but then it closed down for quite some time. When did it reopen?
It reopened in December of 2018 after a big renovation to the building.
Yeah, it's beautiful now.
It is, yes.
It's absolutely gorgeous. So let's go back chronologically. It originally opened in 1948.
Correct.
See how I did the math at 2023 minus 75? I got to 1948. So it was a post-World War II sort of venture, and I think there was a lot of money and good feeling in communities like Ashland, and said, why wouldn't we build a really cool movie theater? Were those fairly prominent in the landscape, I wonder, back then?
Yeah. I mean, the Ashland Theatre has what kind of sadly became a pretty standard kind of timeline narrative for a lot of single screen theaters across the United States. They were built beautiful houses with attention to detail that you don't see in kind of your 1990s or early 2000s multiplexes, just built to be a beautiful space that is more than just a functional space. And then, of course, it fell into disrepair and then eventually kind of shuttered due to everything that was happening in the cinema landscape with home videos and DVDs. And, of course, the multiplexes opening that could show more movies per day than a single screen could, and therefore could just make much more revenue. But yeah, it closed, and then the town eventually purchased it, and the foundation that I work for was formed to maintain the building and operate it.
And so it was closed for, 3 decades, roughly? Maybe?
I believe so. Well, I mean, it never fully closed because there were still people that would kind of open it up and do pop-up events there. And, I mean, that was before my time. But I do think that this town of Ashland, I mean, the marquee of the building is so iconic. I mean, it's just... It's a beautiful, beautiful marquee. And so for the town to have let that go, I just think that there are a lot of people in this town that would have never let that happen. So it was just a matter of time and fundraising to get it reopened.
Yeah, I imagine if we went on a ride around the Richmond metro area and hit every single road in the metro area. So really the city of Richmond, Henrico, Hanover, Chesterfield. Are there other marquees like that around?
There are a few. I mean, one of the theaters that I worked for earlier in my career was the State Theater up in Falls Church, and it's the same. It's a larger space, but it was the exact same trajectory. Opened in like the 1940s, closed, was renovated, and it is now a commercial space. It's not a nonprofit space, but it has a nice marquee. Not quite as beautiful as this one. This one is really outstanding.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't miss it.
No.
Yeah, it actually gives off a really good vibe, too.
It does, yeah. And it's a classic look. I mean, the inside of the theater needed a lot of work to reopen, but the exterior just needed to be shined up and polished. It was ready to go.
How many does it seat now?
Right now, we seat I say 268. We have a side balcony that we use for certain events, and we have what we call the loge, which are these kind of tall bar tables in the back with movable chairs, and we can fit a few more in there depending on the type of event or configuration, but 268 is what our theater seats.
So 250 to 300 depending on what's going on.
Exactly.
Or 268 to 300 depending.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Well, I have to tell this story since we're talking about the Ashland Movie Theater. My dad in 1979 took me to the pre-renovated theater before it not shut down, but certainly got a lot slower there, to the movie Stripes. Now, I know I look fairly young, but I was 10 at the time. And I don't know if you remember the movie Stripes, but it had very adult themes in it. And when the first adult-y sort of thing happened, I'm like, Dad, why am I here? But I remember that like it was yesterday. That was 44 years ago. So, I have great memories there. And I've also been to a lot of events that have nothing to do with movies, whether it's music or speaker series sort of thing. So last year or so, what kind of events have happened in the movie theater?
Yeah, so we, when I'm telling people about the theater, I kind of estimate that we do about 80% movies and then 20% other things. We do have concerts. We have a book festival that will be the third book festival will be happening this May. That's been really, really successful. The book festival has kind of formed, it introduced us to Fountain Bookstore downtown, and they have become wonderful partners. They bring a lot of authors to us when they're on their book tours to do signings and conversations, and some really great events have come out of that. We do a lot of private rentals. Our children's birthday party package is super popular, and we try to do a lot of community events. I have talked about this one so many times, but we have our monthly free event called the Toddler Takeover, where once a month on a Saturday morning, we open the theater. It's free. We leave the house lights on, and it's geared towards kids who are ages 0 to 6 to come in and just sit in the theater, and we show cartoons that are 6 minutes or less. We have some months we have live storytelling. One month we had Disney princesses on stage singing. It's a really cool event to kind of introduce young children to the theater and kind of give them an opportunity to be there and just see what a theater is, and without any of the expectations of having to be quiet or sit still. The whole series was inspired by my beloved nephew Lukey, and it's become really, really popular, with families and also like with grandparents that might have their grandchildren on a Saturday morning, to just bring them in. And it's, a cool weatherproof event that we do. We also have our annual Holly Jolly holiday party where Santa comes to the building and takes pictures on stage. We do that, and that's a free event as well with families. And then we let families with dogs get the whole family on stage with Santa pictures. And then, for Easter, we have the Easter Bunny come and we show Hop. But we try to, we don't only want to show movies, and really we can't, because the pandemic has changed the way that people go to movies. Increasingly, movies are being released in the theaters, and then maybe 30 days later, they're on streaming. And so many people would rather just wait 30 days, see it in the comfort of their own home where they can hit pause and talk and look at their phones, rather than go see it in a theater. And some movies during the pandemic were just dropped immediately onto streaming. And so the way that the people now are looking at new release films has just changed. And so for us to continue to operate for 75 more years, we have to kind of think around that. But I mean, that being said, we definitely have a very loyal patron group here in Ashland. We have some people that I think come to see whatever we're showing just because we're showing it. We have a lot of repeat customers, and a lot of support, which is really nice. That's a nice thing to have, to know that no matter what you're doing, there are certain people that just want to support you.
Yeah, that's great. So I have questions about a couple of things you just mentioned.
Sure.
The 0 to 6 year old
Toddler takeover.
Toddler takeover. How old was Lukey when he came up with that idea?
So he was 4. Last summer, my sister had just given birth to my new niece, Emma, and Lukey's daycare class had COVID, and so the class was shut down. And so my sister asked my mom to watch Luke for a few days, because she didn't want Luke, who could possibly have had COVID, around the baby who was too young, for any of that. So my mom was talking to me one night, and she said, I'm just running out of things to do with him. I don't know what I'm going to do with him. And I said, I'll bring him to the theater tomorrow, and we'll put on some cartoons, and he can just run around.
What a great aunt.
Well, I mean, the kids are the main reason I live here now. So she brought him in, and Rachel, who's our technical director, was helping me get the cartoons on the projector, and we were just looking at him, and he's sitting there eating his little popcorn, and I was like, is this something we should be doing? I think maybe other people would like this. And it really is so cute, because we sell these little kids trays that have a little popcorn and a little drink, and so we'll get these 3-4-year-olds that are just like, what is this building? And they get their popcorn tray and they sit, and again, the lights are on, so they're not uncomfortable. They're just taking it all in. And I think it's going to be really cool over the next 75 years, when we have people like yourself, it won't be people saying, oh, I saw stripes here. It'll be people saying, my grandmother brought me to the toddler takeover. I don't even remember it, but I've seen photos.
Oh, they're going to remember it, though. If they're 5 or 6 years old, they'll remember it.
I hope so. I mean, it's really funny to watch. Over the summer, we have a Monday series that we do for $2 movies every Monday at 2:00. It's over now because the schools are back in session. But there were a couple times where I would be out in the lobby for the $2 movies scanning tickets, and a grandmother would come in with a couple kids, and I'd say, welcome, have you been here before? And the adult in the group would say no, but the kids are like, yep, yeah, we got it, we're old school. And I'm like, okay, great, well, come on in, show your parent or grandparent around. Like, I don't need to tell you anything.
So how many kids do you get on a Saturday morning typically?
It really ranges. I mean, it could be anywhere from 40 people total to 200 people total.
All right, so let's just call it 100
Yeah.
every Saturday, and then over time, maybe it's 600 or 700 people that have experienced that, or maybe it's 1,200.
Yeah,
pretty big number for the town of Ashland. But if you think about how many kids at the age of 1 or 5 or 6 across the country get to experience something like that in their first 6 years of life,
I know
it's a really small percentage.
Yeah. No, it's really cool because I think that when people view the theater, a theater or theaters in general, as a safe, friendly space, then they're going to remember that and want to do that again and feel comfortable doing it. And I think that that's really important. I mean, that's why we do this, so that people can have a safe, comfortable night out and a good time. And so, yeah, let's start that young.
All right, book festival. I show up. What's my experience like?
Well, it's we've been really lucky. The last 2 years, we've gotten some great authors, and like the first year, we had David Baldacci, Adriana I'm always butchering her last name, Adriana Trigiani.
That's close enough.
Yes, and then Zetta Elliott, and that was over a 2-day period. And we had Zetta Elliott is an author and a poet. She writes children's books, and one of her books was on a list at several places to potentially be banned. So she was there talking about her book and just talking about kind of the, her history, like her experience writing it, her reasons for writing it. And it was a conversation, and it was amazing. It was really eye-opening, and people got to ask some very honest questions, and, it was a dialogue. And then the next night we had David Baldacci and Adriana in, and Adriana is, if you ever get an opportunity to hear her talk, you will not forget it, because she is a personality times 1,000. She's hilarious. And David Baldacci, I think, was just kind of watching her talk and go. But, and then they sign their books, and then there's an opportunity to meet them afterwards at a private reception. So yeah, it's great. And then the second festival, we had 2 different authors, and it was a little bit more low key. Their names are completely escaping me right now.
You needed Adriana at the second one.
We sure did.
Yeah, Adriana will probably be on my podcast someday.
She should be.
Yeah, I'll make that happen.
Good. She's from Virginia.
Well, then it's too easy. It's way too easy. All right, let's talk about you for a second.
Sure.
Where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Roanoke, and I lived there, and I was there until middle school. My parents divorced, and we went up to Northern Virginia, where I did high school and college. Okay. And then, I was immediately pre-pandemic, I was in New York for about 11 years, working in mostly off-Broadway theater.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
On the stage or?
No, off stage. Administrator, manager, all those things.
You don't want to be on stage?
No. I studied music when I was in high school. Well, I mean, from zero, I was piano player and bass clarinet player, but I didn't really have the drive to practice as much as you need to practice if you want to perform. So
you have to be obsessive.
You have to give it a lot of time. And I just wasn't, I knew that about myself, that I wasn't going to do it.
You liked it, but you didn't really love it, maybe.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I love live events. I love walking into a space and seeing people come together, particularly at concerts, but any kind of shared experience that a group can have, I think, is a really magical experience. And I think it's important to the human condition. And I think we all saw that during COVID when we couldn't do that. But yeah, I just knew that my place was behind the scenes, making things happen rather than actually doing it on stage.
And so how did you end up here in Ashland?
Well, so during the pandemic, of course, theater had shut down in New York. And so I came back for what I thought was going to be a couple weeks to stay with my mom in March of 2020. This was in Northern Virginia at the time. We were all up there. And I ended up staying for most of that year because there was just really no reason other than the fact that I was paying rent. There was no reason to go back to New York.
You were paying New York rent and you weren't there?
Yeah.
That's brutal.
Yeah, it was brutal. And so, but more importantly, my sister had just my niece and nephew at the time, and my nephew was a year old right when the pandemic kind of started. And I got used to seeing them every couple of days. We were our own little COVID pod, and I got to watch him learn how to walk and play with him all the time. And so I went back to New York just for a few months, and I said, it's going to be so long before theater gets back to what it was in New York. Maybe I should go back to Virginia and just, be a little bit closer to the kids. And so right about that time, my sister said, well, sure, come back to Virginia, but we're moving to Richmond. She was in Alexandria at the time. So they made plans to move to Richmond, and I just started applying for jobs. And I saw this posting, and I thought, well, that could work. So yeah, that's how I ended up here.
Do you love the town of Ashland now?
I do. Yeah, I do. It's been, it's very strange to go from Manhattan to Ashland, Virginia. There was a little bit of whiplash.
Did you feel like you were going back a few decades? Maybe?
I did. Well,
not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way, but it's no, it was very like, oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna, But no, Ashland has been very welcoming, and like I said, it's easy to work for a place like the Ashland Theatre because the town wants it to succeed, and the town is so supportive. It's really nice to feel like you already have a bunch of cheerleaders surrounding you. No one wants the theater to fail. And so that makes my job that much easier and that much more fun.
Yeah, you run into folks in their 70s and 80s, and they've been here their entire lives.
Oh, it's amazing.
And and it crushed them when the theater slowed down quite a bit, and I'm sure it just made their year or their decade to open the theater back up.
Yeah.
And to do such diverse things inside the theater, it's super cool.
It is. Yeah, and we're really trying to just grow. I mean, we're constantly on the lookout for different types of events, different types of programming. I've been lucky to form a good relationship with the librarians at the library here, and they have really amazing ideas for other types of family events that we can do, other types of kind of conversational, current event, kind of dialogue, encouraging events. And it's such a great space for that because, 275 seats isn't large, but it can feel, in other spaces I've worked, it can feel a little bit more less intimate. But at the theater, I think it feels very nice. It's a nice group to have where you feel like you're not getting lost in a crowd, but you're also not the focal point of attention sitting in the room.
Yeah, my daughter is a sophomore at Roanoke now.
Okay.
My mom taught there. I ended up spending a ton of time over there, just like Silent Rob did when we were kids. They have a refurbished theater over there. Mm-hmm. Is there any sort of interplay between the two theaters?
Not yet, but we have certainly talked about it. I currently have 4 Randolph-Macon students on our staff, on our part-time staff, and we, one of the goals that was given to me when I took the job was to kind of get that relationship more open, because we want to encourage the college students to come to the theater, but also they're here. It's a wonderful school. I'm actually super excited. I'm going to be teaching a course there this fall.
Oh, nice.
So hopefully we will improve that relationship even more. But right now we do about 5 events, I would say, where the college rents the theater, for various types of things. And we have talked about doing more, like if they have a big concert, maybe they use the theater as like a rehearsal space earlier in the day or something like that. Nothing that has come to fruition yet, but we are definitely trying to foster that.
All right, you mentioned you're going to be teaching a course this fall. What's the course?
Arts management, principles of arts management.
What does that mean?
Well, it's kind of an introduction course to arts management. So I got my master's in arts management at George Mason, and it's a new discipline that, I would say in the last 10 years, you're seeing it much more at universities around the country. But it's essentially that, the nonprofit art structure in the United States is weird compared to other countries around the world. I mean, it's very fundraising dependent. And I think that...
versus government...
funded, exactly, in other countries. And I think that one thing that arts organizations in this country are realizing is that it can't just be people who got into it because they wanted to perform and then just, kind of walked into administration because they were there. It needs to be people who understand how business works, how fundraising works, how marketing works. And so having a degree in dance performance or theater performance is helpful, but you need that second level of kind of business structure, business understanding over that. And so that's really what, when I got my master's, it was learning about marketing, learning about budgeting, and just kind of learning how to speak the arts nonprofit vernacular because it's its own universe.
And arts and business are two very
different things. Yeah. And unfortunately, they just can't be anymore. So, because for a long time, arts organizations in the country had subscribers, people that would just subscribe and they had their block of tickets to everything that organization was doing that season. But increasingly, people don't like to do that. People are last minute ticket purchasers, and you can't count on this group of X number of people that are going to just show up every single season. You have to be prepared for, younger buyers, people that are a little bit less inclined to just dump money without knowing that they're going to get a good experience out of it. So we have to be a little bit more strategic. But yeah, the class that I'm teaching is just going to be an introduction to all of these things, all of these principles, and just kind of thinking about what it means to work in the arts and look at it with a more business-minded focus.
It's really cool that arts management is now in a place, but it's created an ecosystem where people can do it from Jump Street. They don't have to be a performer, to your point, for 20 years and then get into it begrudgingly, or they get into it without really knowing anything beyond the performance part of it.
Right.
Yeah, and it's really cool that Randolph-Macon and you were able to work that out where you could teach over there.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I mean, well, walk me through how that happened. How did you connect with them?
Well, one of our board members at the theater is Dr. Doring, and he is the chair. Well, he's on sabbatical this semester, but he is the chair for the arts department. And I had done a guest lecture for this class a few semesters ago, and I think that professor just wasn't available. And he said, "Is this something that would interest you?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely." I love, if nothing else, hopefully I'll get some more part-time staff out of it because we love our Randolph-Macon part-time staff.
Yeah, especially in the fall and spring, right? When they're all here. It seems lonelier in the town when they're not in session.
It does, yeah. And we've had some great interns that have come from Randolph-Macon, like really wonderful interns. We had an intern this summer, Katie Dodge, whose entire project was putting together this video about our 75th anniversary, and she did an amazing job. And I have not put it up on our socials yet, but I will, just because she's going to put some footage from the 75th anniversary celebration that we had on August 10th. She's going to put that into the video, and then that will be our final product. But an amazing retrospective of just the theater and how important it is to the community. And she, and that was her internship project. It was a marketing piece, and she did an amazing job.
All right, so I imagine you have some events that are planned several months out, maybe even more than a year from now. Maybe not. Which ones are you really looking forward to in the coming months?
Okay, so yes. So one thing that we're doing as part of the 75th anniversary celebration is a monthly series of films from 1948, and all of the tickets are 75 cents. And that has been, that has been announced and is on sale for the next year. So the next one coming up is on September 18th, I believe, is the Monday. And it's Letters from an Unknown Woman, starring Joan Fontaine. All tickets are 75 cents. And then in October, we have Macbeth, which was directed by and starring Orson Welles. And then it's just a really amazing lineup of films. Our film booker is a guy named Ken, who's based out of Maine, and he did an incredible job picking these films. We have 2 films starring Judy Garland, a Laurence Olivier production of Hamlet, a Hitchcock film, I mean, it's just this incredible lineup of films. All of the tickets are 75 cents, and they're all on sale. And we've already sold at least a dozen tickets to all of these showings, and some of them are not until next summer.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a really cool series. We also are doing 2 plays this fall from the Barter Theatre out of Abington.
Out of Abington.
Out of Abington. They have a touring troupe, and we had them here last year doing Frosty the Musical, and it was so cute and wonderful. And so we're bringing them back to do Frosty again in December, and then they're also doing a play, a musical, Jack and the Beanstalk, in October, and those tickets have just gone on sale. We're going to be doing 2 showings of the Rocky Horror Picture Show in October with a shadow cast. Last year, we did 2 showings of Rocky Horror, one with the shadow cast, one without, and the shadow cast showing sold out. We had a standby line at the door. I have never, people were personally coming up to me and saying, you have to do this again. This was so much fun. This was the best night. So quite literally the next day, I emailed the Shadowcast and I said, I want to book you guys for next year. We're going to lock you in now. So those tickets have just gone on sale. That's a really fun night. I mean,
did people travel for that?
I don't know if they traveled. I mean, they certainly came up from Richmond and like down from Fredericksburg. We get a lot of people from Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg coming down here. It's pretty interesting. And, you know, and a lot of people that come up from Richmond. But so that'll be happening. I mean, we always have 2 weeks of Halloween classics that do a really good, we get a really good response for those. We are going to be showing, this year, we're going to show the original Halloween, which we couldn't show last year, on October 30th, which I think will be a good turnout.
It's going to be an amazing turnout because that's the best horror movie of all time.
That's what people say. I mean, I agree. Yeah, I don't like horror movies, to be honest with you.
I don't either.
Yeah.
But that one does it for me.
Yeah. No, it holds up. And Jamie Lee Curtis is amazing. So, you know. Yeah, and then we usually do about 2 weeks of holiday classics in December. So we're not quite ready to announce or put those on sale yet, but that'll happen as well.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to give you a pop quiz on dates.
Well, you know, it is interesting in this kind of business where you're just constantly thinking 60, 90, 6 months out. I mean, you really have to, I have a calendar with me all the time and I'm like, well, let's look at the dates. Let's see what we can do. But it gets a little exhausting.
What's your relationship like with Downtown Ashland Association?
Oh, it's amazing. And I'm not just saying that because Louise is in the room. No, it's great. Maggie and Louise have been such supporters. I mean, you know, like I said earlier, everyone in this town wants the theater to succeed. But no, I get a lot of great ideas from them, a lot of important, like, historical context. You know, Train Day was such a eye-opener for me. I had no idea what that was going to be and what it was about. And they provided a lot of insight and help, you know, for how we should program that day at the theater, because it's not a day that's about the theater. It's a day that's about the town and about trains. But no, I love working with them. And you know, it's so interesting to me that even outside of Train Day, you have Light Up the Tracks. There are all of the Halloween events. There are Fourth Fridays. I mean, this is a town that constantly has something going on. And so it's really cool that we get to piggyback on top of that and work with them to complement what they're doing and add to it. You know, like we don't ever want to be in opposition with them. I mean, just the other day I was in a meeting about an event in November and I was like, hang on, I got to ask Maggie what the timing is for Light Up the Tracks, because there's no point. We're not going to work against each other here. You know, let's all do this together. So it's great.
No, that's awesome. Have you ever had a podcast in the theater?
We have, yes. Well, you all filmed there.
No, I mean with an audience.
I don't know. Yes, I think that we have. I think that there was one before me, like before I started working there.
Well, that doesn't count.
Okay. No, I mean, Matt Tracy, who works over at the Slip Disc Audio, we did an event with him and the Firehouse Theater, where they did a live reading of the War of the Worlds, the Orson Welles War of the Worlds, with the Foley sounds. And I believe that was recorded for a podcast, but I honestly don't recall.
Would you be open to doing a podcast with an audience?
100%, yeah.
With a really cool guest?
Yeah.
And having a pretty monotone guy interviewing?
Yes, absolutely. Find the guy, let's do it. The guest, I mean.
No, I'm with you. What's your most exciting event that has nothing to do with the theater, just in Ashland every year? Which one do you really look forward to? Because you've been here a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, well, I've only been here for 2 years. What my most exciting event? I mean, can I count my niece and nephew's preschool graduation, because that was pretty legendary and adorable.
It's your answer.
It's funny because I just, everything for me is wrapped up in Ashland. Even though I don't live in Ashland proper, it's, I'm constantly like, I will mention things to my family, like, well, even train day. I'm like, well, that's train day this weekend. They're like, what? I'm like, how do you not know about train day? It's the biggest day of the year. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I think it's really cool what you guys have done with the Ashland Theatre. It is a deeply rooted part of the community. I'm so glad it's active again. I'm so glad it's vibrant, and it's part of the vibe for the town, and I love everything about it. So thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. This was great.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.